sometimes, I'm bound by the law. So sometimes
you can't give them a winning verdict or a guilty verdict, depending on what it is.
Right. I can't give them just anything they want.
So
right?
true.
It all has to be bound in the confines of the law, right? The thing that translates from both of those scenarios, where you're building something for someone exactly the way they want it, they're coming to me and I'm giving them advice, trying to advocate for them on their side, but obviously confined by the law. Like, I can't do that.
I can't do it. Can't make it happen.
Right? Can't make it happen. But one thing that translates both ways is, number one, the responsiveness.
There you go.
So how responsive are you to that person?
That's good.
And then number two also is just how good are you at communicating, talking to them?
Yes.
And I think that's a big part of it, because sometimes people do just want to feel validated.
If you can validate people. Welcome back to another episode of Kingdom Heirs, where faith meets business, inspiring the kingdom-minded entrepreneur. I'm your host, James Matalone, and today we are shooting our 43rd episode with Jeremey Best with the Best Law Firm in Corpus Christi, Texas, as well as Dothan, Alabama.
Dothan, Alabama.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be back. It's good to be in Corpus. I'm happy to see you guys.
So you were on, I can't remember what episode, maybe a few months ago, and we talked about your story of how you got started. You have a really unique story of how you graduated law school at the age of...
I graduated law school at the age of 23.
23,
Got it when I was 20.
Which is pretty unheard of, right?
I was definitely the youngest one in our class. That's for sure.
Yeah, so it's pretty impressive. So that there, you've worked you've worked...
For the DA's office.
The DA's office.
I worked for a firm in New Braunfels before that, and then started my own law firm.
How many years ago did you start your own law firm?
2021. So
all right.
Originally brought me down to Corpus Christi.
That's right. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the power of networking when it comes to startups.
Yep.
And obviously networking goes all the time. We never stop networking because networking is simply just
relationships.
We're just meeting new people.
Right.
But when it comes to the related to startups are, we're referring to people that are starting up a business. Right. So for you, when you decided to jump into business in 2021, what was that like? Did you start out with a huge pot of cash and a huge marketing plan, and you're going to go after all the ambulances? And what was your style, right? I mean, obviously you do, just for clarity's purposes,
criminal law.
Really
a focus in personal injury.
So really personal injury.
Right.
So are you offended that I said ambulance chaser?
Not at all.
Okay. All right.
We get it. As a lawyer, everybody reacts one way or the other. They'll talk to you. What do you do for a living? Then you say lawyer. Either they go, oh, or they go, ooh. So
you get both. Well,
one or the other.
It's funny. Lawyers, contractors, and doctors.
And pastors.
Are all kind of considered in the same category.
Okay.
I hadn't heard about pastors, but I'd say lawyers, doctors, contractors are all kind of considered in the,
right.
Oh, you're a doctor. Oh, you're a lawyer. Oh, you're a contractor. Oh. So, but all of us have like a negative connotation for each of those.
Sure.
But then when you need one of those three, you better find the best one.
There you go.
And there you are. I just gave you a sales pitch.
That was a great plug, by the way. Thank you. So when I started my own firm in 2021, you talk about networks, connections. The reason I moved to Corpus Christi was because my best friend in law school. And so this is a guy that I met first year of law school, became best friends in law school. Funny enough, August 21st, I believe, was exactly 10 years ago when I started law school.
Oh, wow.
So I think that was yesterday.
2 days ago.
2 days
Today's the 23rd.
Close
enough.
Close enough. And so I met him, and I was at the DA's office in San Antonio as a felony prosecutor. And this was coming out of the pandemic. It was the start of 2021. And Jared had been building this law firm down here. He bought a building, they were renovating it, and he kept telling me, I'm building you an office. And I kept telling him.
That's a great invitation.
Right. And I kept telling him, I'm not interested.
Well, you're probably were you making six figures?
Not
Close
quite
to it?
Not quite six figures, but it's
but
just
still
a good job.
Right.
It's a good job.
Pay. Right.
Lots of connections. Everybody knows you. You're assistant district attorney. So
it's a very well
respected job for sure.
Of course it is.
And so he kept telling me, I got this office down here. And so you talk about networking, you talk about relationships. Eventually I felt like the Lord put it on my heart to take ownership and start my own business, and I knew exactly where I was headed. I was headed to Corpus Christi.
But you didn't join your buddy.
Well, I have my own firm, but our offices are all in the same spot.
That's why he was saying, I'm building you an office.
Right.
So then you had so that's a good point. You then had the camaraderie of being next to other people who are also kind of like in the trenches.
Right.
Grinding it out.
And his dad has been an attorney for, 40 years now. And so his dad is also there. So in that office building, there's Gerald Villarreal, who has his own law firm. Mm-hmm. There's Perkins & Perkins, who has their law firm. And then there was the best law firm, me. And our offices were like 1, 2, 3. And so me and Jared had offices right next to each other with a little glass door between us.
I love it.
And so
party all the time, hanging out.
Talk, and it's great because you can collaborate on cases. Jared, much like me, his dad had kind of just been doing it as a lawyer, but Jared is also interested in the business aspect of it, right? And trying to grow
a firm,
especially in 2024, day and age of the internet, Google, advertising. It is so necessary to do all of that stuff.
It is,
and so he definitely has that entrepreneurial mindset to grow the practice outside of just word of mouth.
Which, word of mouth is a very established way. If you can grow your business and maintain your business, maintain and then grow your business just with word of mouth, you're doing a fantastic job with your customer service.
Right.
I mean, you're really taking good care of your customer, and you're asking for the referral. You're asking for the next client.
Exactly.
Right. You're really feeding that.
Sometimes as a lawyer, when you do criminal law, you just have clients that keep getting in trouble.
Well, that's a good repeat business. That's a repeat business, right? So with the idea of starting up a firm, I mean, obviously you started up, you would be considered a solo entrepreneur.
Correct.
Right? Solo meaning it's just you. You're doing everything at that point.
Right.
Mm-hmm. At what point does it then make sense, for you, like a solo practice, does it make sense when you bring in an employee, or do you sub out work?
So, again, part of the benefits of having the relationship, the network, is because we were 3 law offices in one building, we were able to share employees. So
pool them together.
Costs. That split some costs, too.
Yeah, that's good.
I think part of when you're talking about as a startup, as a business, obviously you're doing everything possible.
Right.
But you also have to realize, what is it that I do that brings value?
Right.
What problem is it that I solve?
Yes.
For me, I help my clients more when I focus on the lawyer stuff. Being an attorney, writing motions, going to court. It's not my strength either, but what I don't help them doing is when I'm trying to build out my schedule. The administrative work, or answering a phone call that
it's going to eat up
15 minutes is going to eat up all
and it breaks your brain power of where you were just at.
Right.
Focus time.
Right.
So with that, nowadays there's these virtual assistants that actually are very cost effective.
I've heard that, and I'm curious if you've ever used one of those.
No, I have in-person assistants.
Got you.
Typically, I've had many assistants over the years. I think the first one would have been my niece. Okay. I think it was my niece. I think the second one was my daughter, and then the third one was my other daughter. And then when that one left, my other daughter came back and says, "All right, I'll be your assistant again, Dad."
That's awesome.
And then she's like, "Dad, I'm ready to. Can I do something different?"
Right.
And then my other daughter came back.
Come on.
So there's like this. Well, because it's just part of.
Right.
I think for me, I like the fact that my assistant is someone who already is on my wavelength. They already understand. Yeah. Dad shares about everything.
Right.
And so they're already like, okay, how can we help? Okay, I know you got to do this. I see the list you've made. I can take care of this, this, and this.
That's awesome.
And so to have someone that you trust exclusively, I mean, next to your wife, you have your spouse, your partner, and then you've got your kids who are adult children who understand your business. I've always found that to be fantastic.
And you mentioned it already, but I know for me, my wife has been a phenomenal assistant at times. We had a jury trial that I was preparing for. Should have been in August of 2022, and while we were preparing for that, you're never sure who's actually going to go to trial.
Oh, right,
something
of
set
course.
for trial, because they have multiple things set for trial.
That's the scary part about lawsuits, by the way. You don't know if it's going to go all the way to trial.
Right,
and that's the big kind of crux of every case: is do you want this to go to trial?
Right,
and some people do, and some people are like, no.
And that's not only for people, but that's also for attorneys. Mm-hmm. I knew that as a prosecutor, that when I make a deal, when I'm offering a deal to them, I knew the attorneys that would take it to trial, and I knew the attorneys that wouldn't. And so...
Smart. Yeah.
You know, I know you're not going to trial, so this is my best offer.
That's good.
And I'm not backing off of it.
Yeah, but, that's the power of having a good attorney who's well-established, who knows the other attorneys out there.
And it helps, too.
Part of the network.
Exactly. And it helps, too, whenever you have a great assistant that's personally invested into you. I love that you have your kids working for you. I hope someday when we have kids, which, Becca, we can have kids whenever you want.
Yeah, I love that.
Hopefully you listen to this.
Yeah.
And I want them to want to work with me.
Yeah.
And, I like how you said, I share everything. That's what I want to do with my kids.
Yep.
I want them to know what's going on.
Yeah.
You want to come to work with Dad?
Come on.
Dad.
Come figure it out.
Right.
I think that's part of, when we do any startup, choosing to do a startup, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be a web-based thing. It could be literally like a trades-based thing.
Right.
It could be a profession like, being an engineer or a lawyer, what have you, a consultant. Whatever you're going to do, make the decision. I have a lot of guys say, I want to start a business. And I ask them, so why do you want to start a business?
Great question.
Get the motivator out in front of you.
Right.
Because if it's, I just want freedom from my boss, dude, do not start your own business.
I make the joke all the time. My boss can be rough.
Yeah, they are, because it's us.
When it's me, right?
We are really, really hard on ourselves.
Exactly.
Because that in the end, if we don't perform, it's our heads.
Right.
Like it literally, we can't. I was reading 2 Thessalonians today, and Paul was dealing with the believers, the young believers in Thessaloniki, which is what it's actually called in Greece, is Thessaloniki. And they felt like Christ is coming back anytime now, so let's just not work. Let's just give up on working. And so Paul's writing, says, guys, if you don't work, you don't eat. Yeah. Guys, if you don't work, you should partake none in like you should be, in other words, you need to be actively engaged in the work. And part of the work is just going to work. Part of the work is, it could be kingdom work, but really sharing your faith and so forth. I mean, that's part of the overflow.
Right.
But our work is, how do we provide for ourselves? How do we provide for our families?
Yeah.
Right?
And you're not wrong, because if you don't, there's a certain amount of pressure that comes with it. I mean, unless you just don't care, then that's a whole nother problem.
Right.
But if you want to be your own boss and you want to start your own business, you have to ask yourself, am I ready to carry that weight?
Right.
Am I ready to have that responsibility? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like you said, for me, we're down here. My wife is working part-time. Unless I'm bringing in income, we're not going to have a place to live.
Correct.
We're not going to have food on the table. We're not going to be able to go on vacation. You have kids. I don't have kids yet, but I already love my kids in the future.
Yeah, I love that.
And I can't wait to be able to do things for them.
Of course.
And the last thing I would want is for them to come to me needing something, and I have to look them in the eye and say, no, sorry, when I knew or I know that I could have done something about it, but I was just being lazy or something like that.
Right. And so, when you think about a startup, somebody wants to start a business, there's counting the cost.
Right.
Eyes wide open. It's what you're going to deal with the sacrifices.
Sure.
You'll endure sacrifices, even if you get into like a sales gig and you're selling online products or whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's a very low threshold risk, because it doesn't require a whole lot of investment, right? So there's key things where the people just have an entrepreneurial mind. They may want to just be directed into certain things that aren't going to cost them a lot.
Right.
Or begin it as a side hustle before you jump out of the boat.
Get all the way into it.
Yeah, and you're deep into it. And why not just begin the side hustle during your time, not your boss's time?
Right.
Don't steal time from your current employer, because that's called time clock theft.
And I think it's so. I think it's funny too when you say that and you say it's on your own time.
Yeah.
And I think people look at their day, and they subconsciously do it or consciously, and they say, well, 9 to 5 is when I work. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I don't work.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from.
I don't know where that comes from either, right? Because when the first instruction God ever gave man was to tend my garden.
Tend it.
Right? Work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to, you better work.
No.
It was
produce something.
God knows we need purpose.
Produce it.
Produce it. God knows that we are fulfilled in purpose.
Correct.
Yeah, because we're created on purpose and for purpose.
Intentionally.
So I think part of when you're doing a startup too, you have to recognize when you say count the cost that your workday is not 9 to 5.
No, of course not.
That's an employee's workday. As an owner, you're on the clock.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Just signed up a case like 2 weeks ago of a car accident, and I had gotten a text from a previous client, word of mouth, about a car accident his friend was in. I said, send me the number.
I'll take care of it. Come on. I'm ready. Let's do it.
I was leaving dinner with my wife and 2 of our friends, and it was like 8:45 at night.
Right.
He sends me the number, or he sends me the number. He also sends her my number. She calls me. I'm on the phone with her from 9:30 until 10:30 at night.
Gathering the details.
I get the contract signed at 10:30 at night. If I would have waited till the next day,
it's not likely you'd have had it.
You know, you don't know what can happen. You got to strike while the iron's hot.
Exactly.
But as an entrepreneur, as somebody that owns their own business, you have to be in business all the time.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think there's levels of in the beginning.
Right.
And then there's I'm established. And now I've got people around me to help me delegate. Because, you know, in the beginning, you might feel like you need to work or you have to work 7 days a week. I think it's important that you have a time of rest. Day of rest is very important. It's very biblical, very scriptural. Because in that, then you're recharged.
Right.
Because if you go 7 days a week, you're going to fry yourself. You're going to burn yourself out.
Right.
Just because you're with that 7 days a week, you're also stressing yourself and you're running on adrenaline. The rush of adrenaline.
And if you have a significant other or a partner, or other
she's going to be or he's going to be not happy.
Right.
Not happy.
You're not spending any quality time with them. Exactly.
Correct. So there's this balance because in the beginning, you got to eat.
You do have to eat.
You got to eat.
Right.
And that's part of the hustle that goes into startups.
Right.
And it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for it does not just come easily, nor should it, in my opinion. Because if it all easy come, easy go.
Right.
Right. So I really feel like it's if you really put the efforts in, you map out a strategy, and then pivot. Because whatever your strategy is that you mapped out, it was to get you to get off the couch.
Right.
It was to get you to get out of the chair. It was to get you to move. It was to push the stone momentum to get it to roll.
Right.
And then as you start rolling that stone and pushing it, you need to realize, oh wow, I just hit another stone in front of me. Okay, well, get on the side and push that thing to the other side,
right,
and get around it.
Exactly. That's a good like visual description of it too, because when you're doing a startup, part of what the first thing you have to do, even before you do it, you have to recognize what problem am I trying to solve.
Correct.
What do I want to do?
What solution am I bringing?
Right. Whether it's service based, whether it's a professional service you're doing, whether it's
a product,
product counseling.
Correct.
Anything you're selling. At the end of the day, it's all selling, right? You're
yes.
trying to sell something.
A solution. You're selling a solution. To all things should always be a solution.
Great, and that's exactly right. That's exactly a good way to put it. But when you come to those points where you need to pivot or you should pivot, it's important to also recognize which direction you're headed.
Yeah.
But that's part of like one of the things they say that successful people do is they see the end from the beginning.
Yeah, that's good.
Right, and so
you got to be a visionary. See where you're headed.
Right. Where do I want to go with this? And then also it's important too, you talk about times of rest. I think part of the rest and the recharge comes from resetting and recalculating and recalibrating. Okay, there is that bump in the road. Maybe this is a season where I should take a step back.
Right.
See the big picture, reevaluate what are my values, what do I want, where am I headed, and then from there make the best choice to move forward.
This goes back to network.
Right.
Now network is think through our phones. We once did this with Matt Teifke on one of our previous episodes. If you take out your phone right now, take out your phone.
Yes, sir.
We do a quick little deal here. If you take out your phone, go to your contacts, and open up your contacts, and then scroll all the way to the bottom. It's going to take me a minute. How many contacts do you have at the bottom of your phone?
1,435.
1,435 contacts.
Right.
I've got 1,771.
Nice.
Okay. Now, if you scroll through them, I've got people's names like their first name and the company they might work for, but it's almost always what they do.
I like that.
It's always what they do, what they provide, and or what they own. If they're a business owner, I write that down, and or what they can provide someone else. So now I'm in the building business, right? And so I'm a developer, I'm a builder. So I've got people in here that are heavily trades. I got lots of engineers. I got lots of roofers, plumbers, electricians, painters. I got all those kind of. Now you have a bunch of criminals. You have a bunch of criminals in your phone, right?
I mean, pretty much, yeah. This one is like drug dealer. This one is like, okay, hitman. No. None of that. I will say, to your point, I have gotten, I would feel like in the last probably year, better about being specific with my contacts and when to save them. Nothing is more annoying than handing somebody the phone to put their contact in. They give you their first name only. I'm like, okay, buddy.
Give me some more information.
I have like 20 Daniels.
Give me something else. And I do. I have a lot of Davids, a lot of Davids, Daniels.
Johns.
Yeah, a lot of Jameses.
For whatever reason, too. A lot of Zachs.
So when you look at that, your network is, now think about it. Between you and I, you've got 1,400. I've got 1,700. What is that?
Yeah, a little over 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah.
You and I have over 3,000 contacts.
Crazy.
Do you think we could figure something out if we had a need?
Absolutely.
Hey, I really need a guy that can help me cut some trees.
Yep.
You know,
anything.
I know a guy. James will know because he's in construction. He'll know.
Right.
You hit me. Hey, yeah. Send him. Here's a guy.
And isn't that old thing? What is it called? The 6 degrees of separation, where it's like you can know anybody within 6 degrees of relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
So if we have 3,000 contacts, essentially, I wonder if we could play that game. I don't know if you ever played that Wikipedia game, where it's like how many clicks does it take to get from one Wikipedia page to another?
I've never done that, but I've heard about it.
Right, and so essentially it's like you start on the Wikipedia page, London Bridge, and then you have to get to George Washington. And it's like how many clicks does it take? I wonder how many clicks it would take or how many contacts we'd have to go through between our 2 phones to reach anybody in the world.
I love that. It's true.
We could probably do it.
If we pulled the 4,000, 3,000 that we have here, and you connect them to the other people that we have, you're sitting on a couple 100,000 people.
Easily.
I mean, if not more.
Easily.
So in other words, most people say, I don't know where to start. I know I got to connect with so-and-so.
Right.
Well, call someone who you think might have a contact that somehow, some way, might have a contact in that industry.
Right.
And then you work your way through it.
And this is, I feel like this is an underrated thing that not a lot of people do anymore, but reading a book. You want to be like CEO so-and-so, almost every CEO has a book.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Go and read.
Oh, that is read. Who's written their story?
Their own book.
Yeah.
Go and read one of those books. If you want to be like this CEO, or you want to, man, if only I could talk to whoever, fill in the blank. Go read their book that they wrote.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a lot of personal information about them and a lot of great advice from them.
Without even ever meeting them.
Without ever even meeting them.
It's
just
true.
like this. So part of like when it comes to networking too, it goes back to having the vision of a startup. And when you're in a startup, okay, this is the problem I want to solve. 99.9% of the problems you're going to solve, or 99.9% of the businesses that are started, are not completely brand new, fresh idea doing something
no, of course not.
No one ever else has done.
Of course not.
And so if you're entering into an industry where other people have done it, whether that's film, whether that's podcasting.
Don't recreate the wheel.
You don't need to.
Just go back, follow their method.
Right. And you can go and read their book, learn a lot from that, and then also tapping your contacts to have the person-to-person talks.
Yeah.
But when you also read,
you also get that value.
You're getting more substance too.
Well, you're going to glean from whatever they wanted to really kind of put out there. Right. That you're going to glean from them, and you can build off of that.
And then you're thinking, well, if this person thought this was so important that they would write it down, you should probably pay attention to it.
Yeah, that's a good word. You know, I think some people get into business, or they get into entrepreneurism because of what their needs are. They want to solve a need.
Right.
They want residual income. Right. They want to hit the 6-figure mark. They want to hit a 7-figure mark in their life, right? You know, from 100,000 to $1 million. Like they want to be independently wealthy.
Right.
Right. They want to own a private island. They want to have a jet. In other words, there's motivators that they put up on their walls, or whatever. You know, one day I want that mansion. Right. Whatever it is.
And then the question would be like, well, why do you want that? And that's
correct.
The deeper layer.
Because that's what's going to actually drive you there. It's your motivation. That's what's going to help you get to the destination. But if we only look at what motivates us in our why, you'll miss the biggest thing, which is serving others. Problem solving.
Absolutely.
Troubleshooting on somebody else's behalf. Right. What value do you bring someone else that they're willing to write a check and say thank you?
It's great. It's a great
thing. That's the big thing that I think most people get into business with the wrong pretense. They think business is all about them. But actually, if you don't have customers, you don't have clients, you got nothing.
And it's also, like you said, about, bringing a service, problem solving, and doing that for a person. But that's also where it comes to like the customer servicing, because you might get paid, but if you have terrible customer service or you don't fulfill whatever it was, you're not going to be in business very long.
Not at all. I agree.
And so when it comes to lasting power, I don't know why I thought of this, but Six Flags, Fiesta, Texas.
Right.
What does it say? It says, "Come for the ride, stay for the shows." It's like they're going to come because you're marketing, or they're going to come because they have a problem, but they're going to stay. They're going to word of mouth referrals, repeat customers, because of the way that you treated them.
That's it. They said people will remember not always the words that we spoke, but they will always remember how they felt when they left working with us. They'll remember the residual, he made me feel X. Doesn't matter how good your product was, doesn't matter how bad your product was. Honestly, your service could have been horrible, but you made the client feel wonderful.
Good, right.
Somehow, some way, it's like, I would still refer the guy.
Right.
I've had people where I knew the project just tanked. It sucked. Like, especially in the beginning, like everything that we did. And we've had some, like, even more recently, like it's a team, right? We're working with a team. And sometimes the team you have on the job, not so good. But our commitment in the end is to the client. It's to the customer's experience. We're going to get you through this. I've had a lot of those phone calls with some customers, ladies, and said, "Ma'am, I know this was a horrible experience for you." She goes, "Oh, you just validating."
Just that.
That right there. She goes, "Oh, well, it wasn't that bad." I said, "No, ma'am, it was pretty bad. We could have done it so much better." And it's on us. But here's my commitment. We're going to get you through this. Just hang on. Hang on through this with us, and we're going to get this buttoned up as quickly as possible. So in the end, you get what you want. Well, they told me I couldn't have it. Ma'am, you're paying us to accomplish what you want. And in the end, when you walk into your house and you see what your $50,000 paid for, I want it to be exactly what you wanted.
Right. That's so cool.
That's major. It's major.
That's a beautiful thing, because I know for me, sometimes, I'm bound by the law. So sometimes
you can't give them a winning verdict or a guilty verdict, depending on what it is.
Right. I can't give them just anything they want.
So
right.
True.
It all has to be bound in the confines of the law, right? But the thing that translates from both of those scenarios, where you're building something for someone exactly the way they want it, they're coming to me and I'm giving them advice, trying to advocate for them on their side, but obviously confined by the law. Like, I can't do that.
I can't do it. Can't make it happen.
Right? Can't make it happen. But one thing that translates both ways is, number one, the responsiveness.
There you go.
So how responsive are you to that person?
That's good.
And then number two also is just how good are you at communicating, talking to them?
Yes.
And I think that's a big part of it, because sometimes people do just want to feel validated.
If you can validate people, like if it was just a really not a great experience, or you did your absolute best and you thought it went great, but they just can't get past it.
Right.
Just hear them out. Doesn't mean you have to give them all their money back. Doesn't have to give them any money back at all. If you fulfilled your contract and in the end they're just not happy with the outcome, you can't change how they feel.
I had a guy come in to the law firm once, and all he wanted was for me to look over this contract that he had been sent and look at some of these communications he had gotten. He had written a book. And he had gotten reached out to by some broadcasting company to turn his book into film. And he had a letter from it, and he just wanted me to look at it. And I was looking at the letter, and I couldn't decipher. Something that was just off.
It was called Swiss cheese. It's a Swiss cheese letter. Like, it's got some key details missing.
Yeah. Well, that, and then it just didn't seem, there's something about it that didn't seem legitimate. So I started doing a little bit of research online, looking at it, and it was a scam. He was getting scammed, is what it was.
There you go.
And spent a full hour with him, though. And he came in there thinking, like, man, I'm about to get paid. My book's getting made. And
then you gave him a bill.
He was so excited.
And then you billed him.
Well, yeah, for a consultation. But
he goes, oh.
I told him, he was so thankful, though, at the end. You could see his whole body language when he walks in. He's like this. And then as I'm going through it,
his shoulders start rolling over,
start getting down,
punching over,
getting lower,
man.
And it's just like, oh man, because you could tell he poured his whole heart into this book, and he thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be made into a movie. That's a dream come true.
Yeah.
And then to have to deliver bad news, but to do it in a way that I'm watching out for you, I'm caring about you, I'm listening to you, listen to your whole dreams and stories. You know, he walks out that day, shakes my hand, and says, "Thank you so much, young man. I really appreciate your help."
That's a big deal.
Sometimes
even in bad news.
Sometimes you deliver bad news, or sometimes you can't deliver on something. But if you're responsive, if you're communicative, and if you know,
attentive,
like you said, attentive, it goes a long way. Because at the end of the day, we're all in a people business.
This is the reality of it.
Right.
We're here to serve others. Mm-hmm. I've talked a lot about that, and we're paid servants.
Right.
Most people don't. Whoa! What are you talking about? Paid servant, dude. I'm a business owner. You're chief servant.
Yeah.
You're chief servant.
That's a great way to put it.
Because you're in customer service. No, I sell products. Do you do it with bad customer service or good customer service? How do you provide it?
Right.
And so that's the key thing to always remember no matter what we do. Mm-hmm. If your sole motivator is to go out and achieve that 7-figure income, and you got the yacht and the jet and the boat, or the and the mansion, but you don't think you're going to serve people, don't even bother getting into the business, because it sounds like you're going to rip a lot of people off. Sounds like you're going to come out after money hungry. You're going to take what you get, pay me my money. Your mentality is not going to be right.
Right.
Especially as Christians, as believers, our goal is to serve one another in love and kindness. Mm-hmm. In other words, we should be giving our service and our product in a way that's like, wow, these guys, like, there's some light coming behind this. There's some like heavier weight that's like, this is really powerful. These guys must be something different.
That's good too, because you almost want to, as a business owner and as a Christian, right? First and foremost, as a Christian, your whole goal in life is to bring glory to God.
Yes.
And to tell others about Jesus.
Absolutely.
Right?
The Great Commission.
The Great Commission.
In everything that we do.
In everything
that we do. In the home, the marketplace, and the community.
And I like what you're alluding to when it comes to, I want to run my business in such a way that they say, wow, I've had other experiences with other attorneys before, or other developers before, or other fill in the blank.
Yes.
There is something different about this. They seem to not only care about the product they're selling, but also they care about me as a person.
Yes.
Because the truth is, we do.
In the end, we do.
As a Christian,
that's what it starts out as that.
I love, we're called to love the stranger on the sidewalk as much as we
the neighbor and our brother. You have your brother and your neighbor.
Right. Because, man, that guy could go to heaven. Or he couldn't.
Where's he going to spend the rest of his eternity, right?
Right.
And he said, look, I'm just providing a payroll service. I'm just providing life insurance. I'm just providing, if you're providing life insurance, you really should care where they're headed, right?
It's the ultimate life insurance.
It's the ultimate life insurance. Right. There's the aspect is that no matter what we do as a kingdom-minded person, this is the perspective of Kingdom Heirs. As a kingdom-minded individual, we should care where people's eternity lies.
Right.
And we can show that care through the service that we provide them. I am not a big a supporter of, let's put a Christian fish, let's put a cross, let's put even an open tomb, though I love all three of those things.
Right.
Put any of those things on my marketing materials, my branding. I don't even put scripture verses on my material when I go to market.
Right.
And it's not because I'm not a Christian. It's because I want my actions to precede me.
That's great.
I want my actions to get ahead of me.
That's great.
Because if I lead with those icons, those symbols, or a verse,
right,
people then are prepositioned to that understanding, like, oh, he's a Christian. It should be like their expectation, whatever their expectations are of a Christian, either healthy, unhealthy, whatever it is. They got burned the last time.
Sure.
Some guy came and talking about Jesus a lot, and then he ripped them all off. I mean, dude, I've heard all of those stories. I've seen everything. And so I'm wondering, have I seen everything? I've seen a lot of things, a lot of nonsense, right? So if we don't lead with that, now you leave it objective. People don't have predisposition to you other than what they've heard and what they've already seen.
Right.
And so what can you do for them? And can you solve their problem? Can you do it for the price that they can pay? Because if you can do it for a price they can't pay, forget about it.
Right.
Right?
Not going to start.
Not going to start, right. But if you can come to a mutually agreeable agreement, a contract, and then you fulfill that in a way that is like it brings light into the whatever it is. You solve the problem, but also it was uplifting.
Yeah.
Who's encouraging to them. And they're like, and there's something different about this guy.
What is it?
It's not, he doesn't have like a cloud of darkness hovering over them. He's got like sun, like daylight, like light.
Yeah.
All around him. I don't want to say an aura or any of that other stuff.
Sure. But it's real. It's so true.
It is real. It is real.
It's so true what you're talking about. I mean, there's that Newsboy song, right? Back in the day, Shine, make them wonder what you got.
Yes.
And wish that they were not.
I love that.
On the outside looking bored.
Come on.
And
come on. We should have joy in our lives.
We should have joy in our lives. And it's also like you said, people remember the feelings that you left them with.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, I can think about times when I had just like excellent customer service.
Mm-hmm.
I called and it was like, hey, this product doesn't work. Or, hey, this pizza got delivered and it was wrong. And the person on the other end of the phone was, okay.
What are you going to do about that?
Or call, hey, this pizza was delivered, it wasn't right. Sir, I'm so sorry. You know, first job I ever had was at Chili's, host. And the general manager was the dad of one of our really close friends, still a close friend. And Mark, that was his name. Mark was so good. As a manager, he was awesome. Yeah. He was excellent. And I mean, he would go to every single table, visit them, and that was something to learn from.
Give them a nice experience.
Give them a nice experience, and that was it.
Dude, there's some people that walk up.
He was excellent.
There's some people that walk up at a restaurant, and you know they're the manager, their manager shift.
Sure.
And they literally walk up. You see them stick that little, receipt, not the receipt, the little counter. This is customer number 357.
Right.
If you're at the Texas Roadhouse. Boom. And you're like, all right, I saw it. Now, I'm very, like, customer service centric. Sure. Like, here I am, right? Manager looks like, hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. If you need any questions, I'm right here. And then, boom.
I'm out.
I'm like, okay, thank you. That's not a touch. That's not a table touch.
Right.
That's not I hope you're having a great experience here. Is everything good? Just take a moment, have personality. Bring personality, like cheerful personality.
People are a lot more perceptive than I think. We get arrogant about ourselves.
Sure we do.
And
yes, of course.
And I say we in the sense of not only just me, but everybody in general. I think
we think too highly of ourselves.
And I think part of it too is just
like we're a big deal.
Lowering the ego, and recognizing that everybody has value. Everybody.
Correct.
And man, the best compliment that I could get from anybody is for somebody to say, man, that guy treats everyone the same.
That's good.
That's a
fantastic
huge compliment.
That scriptures talk about that.
Right.
Don't give favor to the poor guy. Don't give favor to the rich guy.
Exactly.
Just treat them all net zero. Like start at the baseline.
Right.
Because they all have a soul. They all have a spirit.
And the thing is, as Christians, we have our example is Jesus, who
knocked it out of the park.
When you consider Jesus, I mean, we have zero excuses.
It's true.
To have any ego whatsoever.
100%.
Well, what do you mean? I'm not going to go clean the toilets or I own the business, but I'm not going to go clean the toilets.
No, it's all part of it. It's all part of it.
It's part of it.
If we foster with a startup idea, we talked about the value of connecting with those contacts in your phone. Get with your family, get with your closest friends. Ask, hey, who do you have in your phone? You know, a lot of people will not show the contacts of their phone because they covet it. Those are my contacts. They won't share.
That is so interesting.
I've
never even thought about that.
They will not share. If you know they got a contact, they won't share it.
Interesting.
Why? Why won't you share that contact? Because I don't know if. I mean, you might put me in a bad light. Really? Me? You think I'm going to do that?
Right.
I mean, you know me or you don't know me, right?
I find that interesting because I've never once thought that way.
Get around some buddies next time. Say, hey, man, who are your contacts in your phone? We covet it. It's part of our relationships. It's part of our no, I have that. And some of them are like, it's like nonsense people. It's like the guy who came to the door and rang to try to sell you something. Hey, let me take your number. You got him in there. But I'm saying is that when you value the networking aspect with you and your family, your immediate family, and then your friend circle, look at the value of who everybody is connected to, and that'll help you in your startup. Number two, I think, so that's really important. There's a value there. And number two, I think is really, really, really important is that when you start to add, customer service, we're here to serve others.
Right.
That's got to be a huge focus for yourself.
For any startup, any business, if you want to be around a long time, sure.
It's all about how I'm going to serve others by serving them and serving them well, by fulfilling my agreement, my contract agreement, I'm going to receive my pay that I agreed to. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay? That's a good, healthy exchange. The customer walks away happy. because they got what they asked for.
Right.
You walk away happy because you got your payment. This is great.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a very, very important, and it's based on good service. So your highest importance needs to be, I'm going to provide really good service. Number 3, when you start to add more people to your team, they must be like customer service is number 1.
Right.
They won't let something slip past. Like, well, we'll just jump them and they won't even know. Bro, you got to leave my team because you are going to make me look like a fool. My marketing is all about how well I take care of people. Mm-hmm. It's how well I take care of people.
Yep.
And those people on your team will bring you down like a rock. Boom.
And especially as a startup.
Like this.
Right.
It'll just take you down like a rock.
And you're not wrong. And especially as a startup, when you're starting a business, it's your baby. It's fragile.
It's your baby.
It's your baby.
It's not your team's baby. It's your baby.
And company culture begins with you.
Yes.
And so as you get further down from you, and I'm talking about when you add employees, a layer of employees.
Yes.
And then you have the next
layer. Well,
because
there's a layer of separation.
Right. And then
from
you have the next layer of employees.
Yeah, especially as you're scaling and you're growing.
Exactly. So that's all going to start with you.
Yeah.
And so company culture starts with you.
Yes.
So like you're saying, you find somebody in your company that doesn't align with the company culture that you're trying to set, you do have to get rid of them.
Yeah.
You got to cut them off.
I don't know that you can coach through that. I've tried it. I've tried it so much, man. It's character.
Right.
It's character. It's hard to coach character.
Right. And people have their strengths and their weaknesses.
Yeah.
They need to be in different places.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
But attitude and commitment and care.
If there's lying, like if they're okay, like telling white lies, which there is no white lies and black lies, they're lies.
They're lies.
If they're comfortable telling those lies, they're lying to you at times as well. Mm-hmm. If they're comfortable telling a customer a lie, they surely are lying to the owner.
For sure.
About whatever makes them uncomfortable.
And really, when it comes to like you said, you can't teach care.
You can't.
Because it's, for me, I have a law firm, right? And so the people that I work with, part of it too is if it's an hourly rate, I'm doing more personal injury, so it's contingency.
Yeah, right,
but still, if it's, hourly rate, we're charging a lot per hour.
Dude, by the minute.
Right. It's not a cheap service.
No, it's by the minute.
So
I've seen those lawyer bills. I'm like, dude, you spent way too long telling me about your liberal views, and you billed me for it. Did you not see the disdain in my face? Like, we should stop talking about this now? Because I'm not going to pay for your bad, know. Anyway, I've seen some of these. Sorry.
Hey, again, there's attorneys out there that do it.
Can you stop the clock? Okay, stop the clock. Okay, now we can go.
Yeah. There's attorneys out there that do it. I'm not gonna lie, but
to your point, you got to be honest about it.
And your customers have to realize too. It's like we're stepping into people's problems to help them solve it specifically as attorneys, right?
Right.
And if you don't care about the person or care about the fact that this person just got in that car accident, like they're either gonna get medical treatment or they're going to wake up 10 years down the road and
you just don't
be
know.
in pain.
Yeah, that's right.
And not even know why. It's like, do you care about that?
Right.
And if you don't, probably shouldn't be in that business, right? And that's part of it when it comes to a startup, when it comes to having the vision and casting vision for the business that you want. Mm-hmm. What is it that you care about?
Yeah. What gets you excited? What gets you fired up when it comes to other people?
Right, because one of the pillars of your company culture has to be care.
Correct.
Has to be. So it has to be something that you care about because you can't fake it. Especially as it goes
not even just for the money.
Layer.
Not even just for the money. Nope. And I think that's what I was talking about, how money cannot be the sole motivator.
No.
It just cannot be because it will not work.
Right.
It's passion. Mm-hmm. Passion with dedication. And dedication with, I'm going to put in whatever it takes ethically to make it go.
Right.
Right? Because when you feel like it's not going, you still need to care enough to keep shoveling the snow or shoveling the coal to put the coal into the engine to make it go. So in other words, it's that level of commitment is only really going to be fostered when you're focusing on something that you are passionate about.
Exactly. Yeah, and the Lord made all of us on purpose and for a purpose.
That's good.
So much of it too, when it comes to startups, is remembering that the Bible says very clearly, "Give us this day our daily bread." Worry about today.
I would have preferred, give us our monthly cheese.
Well, yeah.
Right. I would have preferred, God, will you? I pray this prayer a lot because to your point, I pray that prayer, and I'm reminded of, Lord, you said, give us our daily bread.
Yeah.
Please provide my daily bread. But then as I'm praying that, my mind is like, why couldn't it be weekly?
Right.
Why couldn't it be monthly?
And some people, and I was going to say, some people go to church and some people go to church on Sundays and they just want the whole loaf for the week, right?
Yeah, that's
and
it.
It's like,
it's not enough to sustain you through it.
It's not enough to sustain you through it. And also, it's not only give us this day our daily bread, but the Lord will also give me direction for today.
That's good.
Because sometimes as a startup, especially when you're really starting up and there's a million things to do, literally you could just work nonstop and not take a break.
Yeah.
And you would still have stuff to do.
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't.
There are times when it's like, okay, that's unsustainable, like you said.
It's not. Yeah.
You need rest, but the Lord will give you the tasks to perform. And so I think a lot of times as a startup too, it's give us this day our daily bread. Lord, give me the tasks that I need to perform today. And then Lord, give me wisdom for today.
That's good.
And a part of it is just having an eternal perspective on our lives, not just a 60, 70, 80, 90-year perspective on our lives, but an eternal perspective. Because that also is going to make us care about other people's eternity.
It puts us into being purposeful. We live purposefully.
Well, when you think eternally, right? Eternity has no beginning and no end.
Correct.
It also helps you live in the moment, because in the moment, there's no beginning and there's no end. There's just now.
Right here.
And so you can just be here right now, doing what I need to do right now, because today is a miracle. I was not promised today.
Yeah, that's good.
But I was woken up today by the Lord.
Definitely.
Given a purpose.
Tomorrow's not promised either.
Right.
No guarantee for tomorrow.
No guarantee for tomorrow. I just had a quick story. So we just had my cousin's wedding this last weekend. One of the groomsmen was supposed to be Ricky. So Ricky, I've known Ricky since I was 18 years old, so 12 years. He was a youth pastor at 20 years old when my cousin started going to church when he was 17. They've grown up, became friends. My cousin is also a pastor at that church, a campus pastor. He's a campus pastor. Ricky is in incredible shape. Could get up and run 10 miles, lifted weights. He was 32 years old. He has a 6-year-old and a 15-month-old. About 6 weeks ago, he just died.
Oh, my goodness.
Birth defect, had an aortic aneurysm. Heart literally exploded. He was dead within 4 seconds.
And he's only young,
32 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
Leaves behind a wife, kids. He was a pastor at the church. I couldn't go to the funeral, but I got to watch it online. His wife goes up during the funeral. I was surprised she even went up there, just knowing the circumstances. And it can only be described as like divine strength, dignity.
Yeah.
So beautifully.
Yeah.
People stand up, give her a standing ovation. First thing out of her mouth, she says, "Thank y'all, but thank God." And she proceeds for 10 minutes to give probably the most powerful ministry I've ever heard in 10 minutes. Talking about how I've been young and I've been old, but I've never once seen the righteous forsaken.
That's right. Talking
about how, Ricky didn't get a demotion. He got a promotion. He's in heaven. You could tell she was like, my stomach hurts from how much I've cried and tears that I've cried. But I can tell you that I have a joy, and the joy of the Lord is my strength.
That's
and
powerful.
It was beautiful.
It's powerful.
My gosh, it was beautiful. And then she had everybody put their hands on their people next to them, and she said, "Do it for Ricky," and asked the question, "Do you know Jesus?"
Yeah,
because
so amazing.
my husband knew Jesus, and he's in heaven right now. Wow. And I have joy because my kids are going to see their father again one day.
Yeah.
And in the moment, in the middle of this terrible tragedy, thinking with an eternal perspective, I can't tell you the number of people that came to salvation that day.
The focus.
They described it as like hundreds.
Focus.
And the focus, because when you're in the middle of something like that, when you're in the middle of a startup, when you're in the middle of whatever, your response is noticed by other people.
Yes.
And your response can sometimes lead to revival.
Yes.
Or it can lead to rebellion.
That's right.
Right? And so having that eternal perspective is so important and so key in a startup, because you're not promised tomorrow. You're only promised today. And so I think part of it is focusing in on your daily tasks. What does the Lord have for me today? Because ultimately success is not defined by the amount of money in the bank, the amount of cars you have in the garage, how big your house is. None of that. It's the Lord saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And then your eternal rewards are going to be the people and the crowns that God gives you in eternity, right? And so
that is so powerful.
Look at people.
That is so
Love
powerful.
People, serve people. And as a startup, what more could you want?
that was powerful. That's a powerful, powerful message, and it reminds me of Christ on the cross.
Right.
In the midst of dying, I mean, he, technically speaking, I think he shouldn't even have made it to the cross.
Right.
The way they had whipped him and beat him and destroyed his body, ripping out his tendons and muscles as they're using these whips to scourge him. And in the last moments of his life, his focus was on eternity. Yeah. His focus was on people.
Yeah. His
focus was on the thief on the cross.
Right.
His focus is on, I could win one more.
Yeah.
We can bring one more in.
So
in my last breaths, I can bring one more in.
Right.
Isn't that the focus that we all want?
Yeah.
It is so, when you put life in perspective of eternity, then really this hardship, this moment is literally a blip.
Yeah.
And it's really not all that life ending or life devastation to life. I mean, it's just, we're just going to get through this moment.
Yeah.
Well, I'm bankrupt, or I'm broke, or I'm going to lose everything. Just take a moment right here, right now, and commit the moment to Jesus Christ and say, Jesus, I need you in my moment. I need you right here.
Right.
I need you. And that humility is what in that weakness, that announcing our weakness in a humble state,
right,
invites God into that moment.
Yeah.
And the God factor happens.
And I don't think there's any startup or business. I'm biased, obviously, because I'm not only biased, but I've also lived it. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I know that God is for me. I've seen God's hand move on my life. And so there's no business. There's no venture. There's no step that I would recommend anybody taking unless it's the step that God says to take.
Yeah.
But no.
Ordered
also,
and haven't ordered.
Right. But then know also and have confidence that when you do take that risk, when you are in the middle of the startup, because we've talked about that too, faith and risks are,
they're right
hand
together.
in hand.
Yeah.
And know that you have a God that is for you 100%.
Yeah.
And that
he's our daddy. He's our Abba.
He's our Abba. And your reward is not here on earth.
Yeah, it's not the stuff that rusts.
It's not the stuff
that we throw away eventually in our dumpsters, and it brought some moments of like, oh, that was cool, and then it sits in the garage.
Right.
But we worked how many hours to afford that thing?
Yeah.
That we used once or twice, and then we let it rust and rot, and then we threw it away because it took up space.
And ultimately, it's like we've kind of talked about not having ego to what do you assign value to? Is it being validated by the stuff that you have in your house, the clothes that you're wearing, whatever it is materially? Is that what brings you value? Is that what gets you there? Or is it just knowing that you're living out surrender and obedience to God?
Yeah, I love it.
Because again, eternal rewards is what really we're all going to reap.
And we get the vehicle of, I'm going to close on this. We get the vehicle of using the marketplace. We are ambassadors, right? We are on mission. We are sent on mission, and we're ministers in the marketplace,
right?
With the way we serve others.
Yeah.
What a novel! Like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We get to do this and get paid for it.
God is all powerful. He's omniscient, and he could have just stood up off his throne and said, "Bow down to me, everybody."
Absolutely.
But he didn't do that.
No, he didn't.
He gave us free will.
Yeah.
Jesus at any point could have been like, no. I'm the Son of God. Watch this.
Bang.
Blown everyone's mind, called down angels, done whatever. But he didn't. He left it up to his disciples.
He left it up to us.
So that we could network.
Yes.
Talk to people, touch people, and reach people.
In practical ways. In all practical ways.
Right.
In all practical ways. Dude, it's powerful. Look, you and I could keep going and going.
I love it.
That was good, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming back. Hey, guys, if you valued and appreciated what Jeremy and I talked about, hit us down in the comments. Let us know. If you have certain topics you guys want us to talk about, also put those comments in there. I'd love to respond back to you. And Jeremy as well will put his contact details in there for you. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. I hope you already did that because you were so moved as we chatted and talked. This is natural for us. This is unscripted. This is just, it's out of the overflow. Yeah. I would say this is truly out of the overflow, which is my goal for you as well is that you would live in the overflow, the abundance of God's love and kindness in your life, just as Jeremy and I have experienced as well. So we love you guys. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.